Hello, my name is Alice Hutchinson, and I'm the owner of Birds Books, an independent bookstore in Bethel, Connecticut, and I am honored to be the host of Write America. The aim of this series is to help set the country back on a correct, productive course of freedom, justice, equality, and plain human kindness. Write America is a literary series created by author Roger Rosenblatt, featuring award-winning, nationally renowned authors and new and emerging writers in readings and conversations each week about how books and art might bridge the deep divisions in our nation. Write America celebrates the quiet power of art in our lives, the unifying power of the highest uses of language. In novels, stories, essays, and poems, we recognize one another as parts of the human family, one family. Roger Rosenblatt, the creator of Write America, puts it this way: writing makes justice desirable, evil intelligible, grief endurable, and love possible. So with that, I welcome you, and please join us Monday evenings at this time as many of the most beloved and distinguished writers in the country read from their works and talk to each other, and with you in an effort to bring us together. If you missed our last episode with Emily Bernard and Robert Lopez, you can go to Birds Books Write America page and link to the episode easily. As most of you know, Write America will wrap up its 2-year run at the end of January 2023, and the recordings will reside on our Write America YouTube channel for you to watch at any time. Tonight's episode is also being recorded, so if you missed something, you can go back and rewatch. The link is right on the front page of our website. Tonight, we are hosting readings by and conversations with Roger Rosenblatt and Grace Schulman. I will return at the end after the readings and discussion to bring your questions and comments to the authors. During the episode, please feel free to make comments or ask questions in the chat. We do ask that you remain muted, however. Our first speaker is Grace Schulman. Grace Schulman, winner of the Frost Medal for Distinguished Lifetime Achievement in American Poetry, is a member of the American Academy of Arts and Letters. She is the author of 8 collections of poems and a memoir, Strange Paradise, Portrait of a Marriage. Formerly poetry editor of The Nation and director of the Poetry Center, 92nd Street Y, she is distinguished professor of CUNY CUNY's Baruch College. Her newest poetry collection, Again the Dawn, New and Selected Poems, was released on Tuesday. Oh, today, maybe today. Please welcome to the screen, Grace Schulman. Let me find you, Grace. Here you go. Let me get out of here. There you go.
Hello. Hello, Alice. Hello, everyone. I hope you can hear me now. Yes. Hi.
Yes, ma'am. We can hear you just fine.
Good. I'm honored beyond words to be reading for Alice in Birds Books and to be reading for Write America, which is such an important thing in our lives. As Roger says, it makes love possible. It unites people by art and makes us one and seals the bond between and among people. It gives us a language to whatever our individual languages are. Doesn't matter, it goes beyond language in that sense. I will be reading from my new book, as Alice says, Again the Dawn. And it's a new and selected, meaning it has new poems in it, as well as selections from 9 books. And I'd like to start with the new poems. I'm especially happy to be reading with Roger because, among other reasons, our images and themes often overlap. And he has a new book coming out, a wonderful new book coming out in February called Cataract Blues, in which he mentions Matisse Blue. Well, the first poem I'm reading is Confessions of a Nun, spoken by a nun who helped Mati. She was his nurse, his helper, an art student who helped him build the wonderful Vance, Mati's chapel. Yes, I loved Matisse. He made it for me, this church of glass and fire. Now, when the sun rolls rectangles on floors through windows painted yellow, I remember the yellow broom we stumbled through each morning when we climbed this hill, and how he stirred to greens in scrub weeds, whites in the anemones, and blues in the sliver of sea beyond rock terraces. He owned his loves, his Vance, I, his Monique, nurse, disciple, Rose. But who was I? Harsh words we had, a few. I had to leave for me, myself, my holy vows. If I belonged to anything, it was, how could I tell him, someone larger. Il faut y avoir plus. There must be more. Later, he aged, arthritic, waiting for the angel to wound him. None appeared. But when my sisters called for a new chapel, I drew a priest he painted on a wall while belted to his chair. I tied a brush to a long twig, strapped it to his arm, and watched him paint anger in daring strokes. An outsized poppy, the Virgin and Child, a monk, rage for lost years, for few to come. Why does he think his work is never finished? And yet he scorned, what is it? PTA. Not for him. He told me once in wartime, his daughter captured, tortured for her fight in the Maquis. He wept at home, alone, all the while painting joy in reds and violets. Now in this blue-green-yellow chapel, seeing the late day sunlight on the sketches of plane tree, priestly vestments, and an altar the color of risen bread, I know at last that just as he held my vows in his great hands, he, godless, will work it out with God. This next poem came to me while walking on the shores of East Hampton, which I love, as well as New York. And I saw scallop shells, which brought to mind Camino Santiago in Spain, the road that the pilgrims traveled to get to St. James's tomb. St. James was said to have risen from the sea, covered in scallop shells. So the pilgrims doing homage to him wore scallop shells on their hats. Badges were scallop shells. Now the plague was there at that time of pilgrims walking to the tomb. And this march to the tomb was really a super spreader. More pilgrims came down with the plague at that time because they were together, walking together. Didn't understand much about infection. And that, of course, reminded me of our time, our pandemic, our so-called plague. Scallop shell. See them at low tide. Scallop shells glittering on a scallop-edged shore, whittled by water into curvy rows, the shape of waves that kiss the sand only to erode it. Today I walked that shoreline, humming Camino Santiago, the road to St. James's tomb, where pilgrims traveled, scalloped badges on their capes, and chanted prayers for a miracle to cure disease. And so I, stirred by their purpose, hunted for scallop shells, shaped like plated fans, with mouths that open and close to steer them from predators. I scooped up a fan and blew off sand grains, thinking for that one moment of how St. James's body rose from the sea decked with scallops, and of this empty beach in another austere time. Let this unholy pilgrim implore the scallop shell, silvery half moon, save us. I'll read another new poem, also a shore poem. I spent 2.5 years on the shore during the pandemic, feeling very fortunate to be there. Tessera. Beach stones tick wet sand like gleaming commas. Ivory eggs, ant-sized silvery beads, and red ochre clocks washing from mountains their ancestors. They are, well, forgive me, chips off the old rocks. Stones are tooled by the ocean, the master jeweler, carrying the same for quartz and bottle caps. Stuck on land, stones cast tear-shaped shadows that vanish after dark, just as my footsteps disappear with each new wave on shore. Stone-faced, they conceal an inner wildness with memories of shipwrecks, cholera, gulls' broken wings, and shorelines that erode. In fallow times, I'll scan the sea for answers. Silence. Then the message of the stones, outer blankness, inner fire. The Roman artist who searched for tessera, wooden bits, glass shards, and cracked shells, must have known that beach stones, seemingly dull, would shimmer when grouted in cement or mosaics, flaming in yellow gold. One more pandemic poem. This one set in the city where I live, Washington Square, 2020. From my window, I see the world without us in it. A vacant park, a silver maple sheltering no reader, a cherry tree dressed like a bride betrayed, her wedding canceled, a dogwood tree whose whites will fall without regretful eyes. No baby strollers, no candy wrappers stuffed in bins, just a sign, no bicycles, and memories of skateboard pirouettes. Around us, death, the numbers spin the mind, fever dreams, the last breath held alone. I had not thought death had undone so many. This park reminds us it was once a field for the unclaimed dead of galloping yellow fever. Construction workers dug up skeletons that had lain for years beneath our footsteps. Death in the hanging elm, a rooted gallows. Now the clear air, pollution-free, is poison for walkers, while trees stand stern, immune. Sad paradox. For comfort, I recall Camille Pissarro would have lingered here. He painted Paris gardens from a window, having left his island's sprawling shores for tighter scenes. He gazed at people, matchsticks from above, in ones and twos. Below, the park's unlittered paths are mute. But wait, just now, a mournful, prayerful sax, unseen from somewhere, unlooses notes, calls me to the window, and I hear the sounds I can't imagine days without. I'll read another poem about New York. It's called Street Music. Astor Place. There he is, outside the subway entrance, where sunlit figures race down steps to darkness, their hearing like mine, dulled by traffic whines. He sits low and drums jazz on a plastic box turned upside down, white with blue letters, stamped by its owner, U.S. Postal Service, made for mail, though with an alto's range. Now he raises sticks and beats staccato up-tempo, faster than your foot can tap. Judging from his gaze, the eyes unfocused, no money jug in sight, no pause for offerings, no violent cases open like birds' beaks. I'd say he dives for notes that only he hears and swims up proud. He raps sticks soft and loud, alone, though he may think his rattling joins a trumpeter's phrases blown at breakneck speed or a pianist's feathery arpeggios. For me it does. The sound calls back a cave of smoke, talk, laughter, a bass player's solos, a tenor sax eases out note in a whisper that grows into a regal tone and floats above the chords. Faces gleam at tables. But no, the subway entrance man's alone. He rumbles on, catching the city's breath, rolling out solitude in the midst of clatter. His playing says, if you rub two sticks together, you'll have fire, or you might have music. Roger has a new book coming out in February called Cataract Blues, which I was privileged to read an advance copy of, and I'm going to read this poem for his book. In his new book, I'll just give you a very brief preview. He weaves the color blue through mystery and magic and memory. And this poem is called Blue Dawn. I see Viola float in on a plank from the wreck, touch land, pocket a seashell for luck, and shivering, glide into a kingdom. As once Long Island settlers trudged ashore, and, though weary, took in blue-green forests at sunrise, before lines furrowed the oak trees. When his ship steamed into New York Harbor, my father stood on deck in cramped, thin shoes and watched blue rocks grow to be Ellis Island. Sailing through fog at daybreak, his eyes burning with the statue's unlit torch, How could he know that one day he would walk on asphalt pavement wearing a tweed coat, though still in cramped shoes? Scant time for shops, he said, but I knew he chose to save the blue wonder of what might be, as I do now. Slate flagstones going blue in the not yet risen sun, an unopened iris, the miracle of a yet unprinted page. I like to write persona poems, as in my Matisse poem, uh, but in this one, I had the nerve of speaking for God. In Genesis, we don't hear God's voice directly. We are always told, well, God said this. God said, let there be light. So I thought somebody should speak for God, and that's when this poem came about. God speaks. Before the hour, I cried, let there be light. I tossed out some 300 early versions. Revisions help. What clatter in the firmament, though, when mountains fell, stars fizzled out. This work is my best, at least for now. I called. I named each thing, and it was so. I cannot tell you how, from heaven to seas to people, all sprang up wanting to be. The methods I advise are more precise. Noah's Ark, for instance, gopher wood, 3 stories high, side entrance and a window. Here, when I said the waters, oceans rose. Worlds are never finished, only abandoned. Yet this one came alive when there were woods for creeping things, dry land for men and women. The evening and the morning, they were good. Creation had been done before, of course, in legend, same formless waste and darkness, but with one change. The Babylonians have many gods. Always I work alone. I'm going to read just one more poem that I think is appropriate for Right America because it speaks of connection, or the hope of connection, the prayer of connection, and it's called Prayer. It's a ghazal, 7th century Arabic form, which the odd thing about it is that it's a Yom Kippur ghazal, connecting that way. And it was written when Aga Shahid Ali brought the true ghazal to American poets and told us we had to do it in that form. Prayer. Yom Kippur, wearing a bride's dress bought in Jerusalem, I peer through swamp reeds, my thought in Jerusalem. Velvet on grass, odd, but I learned young to keep this day just as I can, if not as I ought, in Jerusalem. Like sleep or love, prayer may surprise the woman who laughs by a stream or the child distraught in Jerusalem. My Arab dress has blue, green, yellow threads, the shades of mosaics hand-wrought in Jerusalem, that both peoples prize, like the blue-yellow dome of the rock, like strung beads and cloves, said to ward off the drought in Jerusalem. Both savor things that grow wild, coreopsis in April, the rose that buds late like an afterthought in Jerusalem. While car bombs flared, an Arab poet translated Hebrew verses whose flame caught in Jerusalem. And you, Shahid, sail you to Halevi Sea, as I on Ghalib's course like an Argonaut in Jerusalem. Stone lions pace the Sultan's gate, while almonds bloom into images, Hebrew and Arabic, wrought in Jerusalem. No words, no metaphors, for knives that gore flesh on streets where the people have fought in Jerusalem. As this spider weaves a web in silence, may Hebrew and Arabic be woven taut in Jerusalem. Here at the bay, I see my face in the shallows and plumb for the true self, our Abraham, sought in Jerusalem. Open the gates to rainbow-colored words of outlanders, their sounds untaught in Jerusalem. My name is Grace, Hannah in Hebrew and in Arabic. May its meaning, God's love, at last be taught in Jerusalem. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Grace. Our next speaker is Roger Rosenblatt. Roger Rosenblatt, whose work has been published in 14 languages, is the author of 5 New York Times Notable Books of the Year and 4 Times bestsellers. His honors include a Fulbright Scholarship, the 2015 Kenyon Review Literary Life Achievement Award, 7 honorary doctorates, 2 George Polk Awards, the Peabody, and the Emmy. Kirkus Reviews said Roger has excelled in nearly every literary form. UPI called him a national treasure. Cataract Blues, his new book, will be out in February of 2023. Please welcome to the screen, Roger Rosenblatt. Let me find you here, Roger. You got to unmute yourself.
Did I push the right button?
Yes, you did. You're good.
Got to get something right. I am so pleased, lucky, honored to be reading with Grace. If there's any writer in the world who can speak for God, it's Grace. She's one of the few great, truly great poets of the last 100 years, which is to say, all of the era of modern poetry. And I stand in awe of her. Thank you, Alice, as always, and Lindsay, for making all of this look easy. I'll read a little from Cataract Blues, and my thanks to dear Grace for mentioning that book. Actually, one of the best things, or two of the best things that happened regarding this book occurred after the book was finished. One was that it was accepted by Bill Mauricio of San Diego State University Press. And Bill, as you may remember, gave a wonderful reading of his own work a few weeks ago. He's a terrific guy. And I was lucky to have the book fall into the hands of someone who really got it. And the second blessing was Jules Pfeiffer. Jules has been a friend for 50 years. And I thought to ask him to illustrate this book. I've never had a book illustrated before. And thought to ask, but I was a little shy to ask him. He has his own work, and he's an artist of such stature. But of course, he's also one of the great guys of the world. And he immediately said yes. And I want to show you just a couple of the things that Jules gave to this book. The first is the cover, and the cover, I hope I'm holding it correctly so that you can see it. The subtitle of the book is Running the Keyboard, and you see pianist, I suppose myself, running the keyboard for Cataract Blues. And then I mentioned later on in the text, I mentioned Fats Waller, and look what Jules has done to give us Fats Waller. Could not be better. And then I'll just show you one more, and that's I mentioned the East River a lot, and the blues of the East River and the currents and the motions of it. And Jules captured that, looking at the East River under the walking bridge around 96th Street, or is it 110th? At any rate, so lucky to have Jules do the artwork for this book. And also there was another part of that too. Jules's eyesight is troubled now, and he can't read. So his wonderful wife, Joan, a wonderful writer in herself, in her own right, read him the book. So what Jules did was to imagine the images that he eventually attached to the book, which just seems to me a lovely extra event attached to this little book. So as dear Grace said, it's about mystery and memory and the color blue coming blaring at me when I had cataract surgery, a whole revelation. And I tried to make a story of three disparate things that work, that had to do with mystery generally, the things that are inaudible and invisible, one of which is our daughter who died 15 years ago and her memory. And then the color blue, which just washes over all of it. But thanks to Jules again, if you don't like the book, you'll love the pictures. Here is cataract blue. In dreams begin responsibilities. Maybe that's because dreams have a sound of their own, not connected to the sounds of this world. In sleep, it is possible to hear sounds not yet generated by the outer world. So Freud, in the interpretation of dreams, wrote on hearing sounds in our sleep. There is no actual source of sound around. All the voices in dreams are silently generated by our sleeping minds, not by some external entity. All of which suggests that the brain, not needing auditory stimuli to hear sound, experiences a recreation of what sound has been in the past. You only hear true sound the first time you experience it. After that, the brain anticipates what it will hear based on what it has already heard. So in dreams, as in hallucinations, the sound you hear is the memory of sound. There is no sound save that of silence. Paul Simon nailed it. Silence which may be clamorous, a clap of silence. Hold your ears. See how lustily the deaf take to dancing. I often wish we only spoke in sign language, whether we could hear or not. I hear singing and there's no one there, the lyrics of a life. The first jump on a horse, the first belly flop in a pool, the first basket, the bluebird of happiness, the first kiss, and the first grief, our neighbor, Miss Jordan, and the first piano, and the full moon in a setting of silver clouds like a pearl. I hear singing and there's no one there. And my coldness towards my parents, my self-punishing revenge, and the playing of dancing in the dark, and the fist fights in the streets, and the tears, not when I was losing, but when I was winning. Tears of confusion and shame. The blue angel. I hear singing and there's no one there. A gardenia for Ginny's corsage in high school, blue, and a walk on 14th Street together under the blue light street lamps, and together in Reese Park, and together in bed for the first time. Here we go into the wild blue yonder. And you and the night and the music and blue velvet. A bench alone in Washington Square Park, and Aunt Julia in the hospital screaming in pain, and the sorrow and all the guilts, all the sorrows, and the great sorrow, the lasting sorrow. Where's a hug when you need one, little girl blue? Lady sings the blues. I hear singing and there's no one there. Virga, nice word. In meteorology, virga refers to the streams of rain or snow falling from clouds that evaporate before they hit the ground. They do hit the ground, but they're invisible when they land. In other words, the apparition of snow exists. Wallace Stevens was right, even if he thought he was only speaking metaphorically, nothing is there. Take a look at the spaces between the letters of a single printed word. The word word, for instance. See the space between the W and the O and the O and the R and the R and the D. The space is negative space, as in art. The word would not exist without the negative spaces between the letters. If you concentrate on these spaces long enough, they overtake the letters they separate, suggesting words of their own, words in a language you'll never know. Are these spaces what the words really mean to say? Are the negative spaces between people themselves? Do they represent an invisible population, come from another place like the past? Do the dead walk among us? They certainly do in memory. I don't know how historians tally such things, but they say that ever since our species stood up, 107 billion of us have died. Compare that number to the 7 billion now walking around. I understand now it's 8 billion. That gives us a 15-to-1 ratio of the dead to the living. Are the negative spaces among the living occupied by all who have gone before? Ghosts, Casper friendly and otherwise, crowding our boulevards, our shops, our kitchens? And what of the negative spaces between one ghost and another? Am I carrying this too far? A steady rain makes the East River whisper in the evening, a monody of tides. From my great window, I stare into the blue door of the water, but can make out nothing. Not the red beams from the bridge, not the strawberry moon, emblem of ripeness, supposed to be up there somewhere, hanging fruit, flirting with the stars somewhere. Nothing is emphatic but the darkness. A woman told me of her childhood, of summer swimming in the sound and ponies in the wind and cloves and paving stones. And I spent many days in her past, someone else's past, just as I am alive in someone's memory, talking and laughing in someone else's memory. It's all perplexing yet understandable too, these magic relocations, silent relocations. In whose mind do you reside right now? Do you have any idea? Between the thing and the naming of the thing lies expansive territory, a steppe, a prairie, a savanna, a Serengeti. Until we saddle something with a name, it has power over us, bestowed merely by its freedom and independence. A bird, a technological invention, a country, and a baby too. All the same, naming it gives us power. We don't necessarily name things to control them, but it's an easy way to make life orderly. And once the thing is categorized and owned, saddling may be just the right term for the transaction, as what was roaming free in the universe of things one moment is suddenly broken like a horse. Broken too is the right term. A quarter horse is forever. Once named, it stays named. But in however long it takes between the spotting of the wild Mustang and its nominal suppression, we live without names or formal knowledge in silent appreciation of the thing to be called a horse. A horse is a horse, of course. But the pre-naming silence says something calming. It says, stop, wait. It says, embrace life without conquering it. It is impossible to imagine a world made up of moments in which we too would exist without names. What if the moments were extended to lifetimes, no names? Would we find other ways to identify and own and probably destroy one another? Or would we live content in the soundlessness of who we are? You would not be mine, I would not be yours. What would be said in the silence between us? My name is someone and anyone, said Boris. Lazuli Bunting negotiates the wires of the rain like a rookie on maneuvers in basic. He's very good. He's very blue. You don't see Lazuli Buntings around here on the river, especially at this hour of 4:23 a.m., my normal time of awakening. I have just looked out the window and greeted the bird. We have much in common, insomnia for starters. For his part, he gives me a sidelong glance as he wheels by. If we could talk, we might reveal a radiance of commonalities, beginning with our sleepless nights and an affection for blue. He might have as low an opinion of opossums as I have of gossips. His home may be in Oregon or Arizona. I have seen both places. He may have a fear of heights. I have a fear of heights. Is how much worse for a Lazuli Bunting. We do not talk. He goes his way, and I watch him disappear in the wires of the rain. I hear him mutter something about my provincialism. Blue, a cry of absence in the heart from nothing, something. The something in the nothing, like a river in blue rain, I look for you. The steel blades of the tides, the liquid tweeds in pewter water, nothing. The dark gunmetal gray, the documentary war, victory at sea, action in the North Atlantic, the world at sea, nothing. Blue sea, stone angel wings, statuary with chipped noses, ears, I look for you. The classic face, Julianne Moore's profile like a Roman coin. A medallion, classic, classus. A fleet of coins, flotsam, blue, nothing. Blessed are the invisible creatures, blessed the waits. Who calls to us in silence? The unutterable, the unspeakable, the absence. We love like blue roses, open like blue roses, and oceans open, accepting love played on the basest keys, the smoked glass, bluegrass, and the old blue mare, and the old blue whale, and the old Kerry blue terrier, and the old blue goose. I look for you, the purple passage through the fog turned blue peas under the iron stars. A guillotine of moonlight strikes the gibberish of tombstones. Chatter of the dead, glued to their ancient lineaments, ice. And gray matter matters, blue matters too, blue collar workers, blue bells, blue subs, tanks and bombers, the hardware of the heart. Did you receive word? Nothing. The nothing. Greek and Roman emperors, their fluted hair standing in the blue water. Just below the surface, they have a message from you, nothing. An answer to my shapeless prayer, nothing. Zero, zip, I am a big fan of nothing. I am a big fan of E.E. Cummings. I am a big fan of absence, except in one instance. You hear the whetstones throbbing to the roll call, present and not accounted for, here and not here. The coal, the mood, the muscle, the river, a cry of absence. Nobody, not even the blues, has such small hands. Thank you. Now can I talk to Grace?
Grace, you need to unmute. I muted you.
We can talk.
Yes. Yes, we can talk. I am so enthralled by your poems. I gasp. I do privately when I read them in the books, and when I hear you read aloud, adding that much more. And there's so much to them, and so many various themes. I hardly know where to start, but I'd like to start with music, because I know you love music and you have an affinity for it. And in the street music poem that you read to us a few minutes ago in Astor Place, all your New York poems are sublime. But the one that really got me recently was the Art Tatum poem. The Art Tatum is infuriating because he says, say he plays T for two, and I play the little piano, and I stand and I start to play T for two, and it's absurd. I might as well just throw the piano out. The things that he could do with a chord, with riffs on keys, it just takes your breath away. And that you fix on him. I love the fact that you love jazz and that you know it. I should tell everyone here that there was a celebration of Grace at Baruch College last week, and it was beautiful and attended by former students, and just the kind of thing one ought to do for a great spirit who had been among them and whom they cherished. But then there was a fellow who played jazz. I think it was his own jazz composition that went along with a poem, poems of Grace. And I looked at Grace as these were going on, and she had her eyes closed. And she might as well have been any 23-year-old girl, just closing her eyes and having the music just flow through her. And I thought, you don't really get much more beautiful than that. So thank you for that sight, Miss Grace.
Gosh, I don't know what to say. Thank you so much for that, Roger. Thank you. It really struck at what I feel and believe and my innermost thoughts. It's true, but you too love jazz, and we both love Thelonious and Bill Evans.
Another
when did you listen to jazz? Did you hear them?
I suppose ever since I was a kid. I played the piano by ear since I was 3 or 4. And I haven't gotten really much better than that. I can just reach the keys now because I'm bigger. But lately, however, I've been taking jazz lessons. Ginny gave me jazz lessons as a birthday present a couple of years ago, and I'm shocked that I actually can learn. And I've been learning from a great guy named Matt, who is very patient with me because he knows I don't read. So he plays so that I can hear it, I can pick it up, and then with a variety of things he does. Anyway, yes, jazz is in me.
Have you heard Evans and Monk live? Or
No,
to them on
I never. I only know Evans from the recordings. He's also infuriating. He starts out as if you can do it because he plays every tune the same way. He plays it very simply at the beginning, and you think I can do that, and he plays it again, and it's very simple, and then he starts to take off with it very slowly, and then into a realm that nobody could possibly do but Bill Evans. Anyway, he's a wonder to listen to.
Thelonious too. Thelonious is not what he appears to be. He plays with his elbows. He touches hot pans when he touches the keys. He plays with his feet sometimes. And there is style. There is creation. There is form in this apparent formlessness.
You know what I love about Thelonious? I hope you have seen. It was the Newport Jazz Festival, the first one, and he played it. Okay, so a huge, the great outdoor audience, thousands of chairs, not always filled for all the performance, but for Thelonious, absolutely filled. So say, I'm just guessing, say there were 10,000 people listening to him. He finished. I forget what he was playing, but he finished. And then he looked up and he batted his eyes as if shocked that anybody was there. He was so into himself, and that it was shocking to him that people were there and that he was an audience because I guess because he was so perfectly and beautifully inside himself, inside his music.
He pays no attention to what's outside of him. My husband, Jerry, and I, my first job after college, or one of them, was working before I went straight. I was working.
Yeah.
I worked for Glamour magazine, and there were these 10 best dressed college girls who were called for by the magazine. My husband, Jerry, and I lived in the village, and the magazine asked us to take them to hear jazz. Well, these 10 best dressed college girls walked into Thelonious's place where he was playing, and their stiletto heels were clacking on the floor, and they had strangled waists and everything. He didn't look up. He didn't notice this herd, this army that was coming toward him. I thought surely it would be intrusion. No, he just went on with his elbows and his hands doing what he did. And the contrast was
the most perfect. And he's the only person who makes self-absorption a virtue.
Yes, yes.
He was totally self-absorbed. So you were speaking of your husband, and there's this gorgeous poem, First Chill, Then Stupor, Then the Letting Go. And several questions about it. One is that it's the end of another collection. It's the end of the Marble Bed, I think. Right. And it's powerful. It's so powerful anyway, but it's particularly powerful coming at the end of the book. But you say in it that there's no letting go. There is no letting go. And would you explain that?
You don't want to lose grief, because if you lose grief, you lose everything. You lose the joy that came with it and so forth. You don't want to
Yes.
lose that. There is no letting go in that sense. But if you're alive, you're obliged to move on. You have to move on. But the grief is still there. It's a part of your cells. It's a part of your body. It's a part of who you are.
It is so mysterious and painful to trace the progress of grief in the body, that it stays with us and takes different forms. I know for Ginny and me, when Amy died, there was one form of grief, and there were explosions of tears from time, and then no tears, and then months would pass, and it was as if I'd forgotten, and then something comes back and brings you to your knees again. It's as if grief were a separate entity that decided to deal with you, and then you deal with it, I guess.
Very much like ocean waves.
So
You think that after this wave, there'll be calm, and then a great big comber will come after you and hit you,
and you think you'll drown.
and you think so. But you don't.
Right. You have a wonderful combination of heartbreak and strength and reverence. There's a reverence for the dead. The poem at the end of this amazing collection, Again the Dawn. Would you tell us about Dr. Helena Waldman Gold and the letter to Helen that ends this book?
Well, thank you for asking that, Roger. She was my father's sister, who was a doctor in Warsaw when the Nazis came to Poland. The rest of her family moved to Israel, but she didn't move there because she wanted to stay with her patients in Warsaw. And when the ghetto was about to be dissolved and the ghetto residents sent to Auschwitz or to concentration camps, Helen would not go passively to her death. She climbed a tower, a municipal building, got hold of the flag, yanked it from the mast, and wrapped it around her. It was a Polish flag, in anger that the Poles had given her away to the Nazis. She was a doctor for Poland. And she wrapped the flag around her and jumped or was shot. We heard the story from a survivor. I was a child when this came about, when this happened, and it stayed with me all my life. And I think that I write because of Helen, not in her voice, probably in the voice of Hopkins or Dunn, my masters, but with her, whatever, she was an icon for me. In other words, whatever she was, I wanted to emulate, to be, and wanted to.
You have her stature, you have her courage.
I don't know, but I like to think of it. We all have some ideal in our minds. We never achieve it, but we have to keep trying.
It is true, and it's part of the mystery. Mystery is another subject that you and I like to walk in slowly.
Well, I'm intrigued by your contrasts, one after another, and I heard them tonight. Silence and sound, visible, invisible, absence and presence. It's wonderful in the sense that you think you're going to get away with something. Okay, absence. No, you're not. Because the contrasting theme is there as well. And it's a wonderful thing to think about, to be into, to to be involved in considering the oppositions that exist simultaneously in your work. I'm amazed.
So right, you and I are happily happily give ourselves over to mystery. I believe in it as almost as a religion, and certainly it's part of religion as
Yes.
well. But early in, as you know, early in Cataract Blues, I tell the story of Irish soldiers who surrendered, who gave up, and they lost every battle that they fought. And the poet who wrote about them said that he surmised that they lost their battles not because they had poor weaponry or strategy or that they lacked courage, but because, he said, they heard a secret music, and the secret music led them to pity and to peace. And I
Oh,
thought, my goodness, my
that's
goodness.
so beautiful. So the secret music
And you
leading.
do hear this secret music too, or at least you hope you do, leading you to something better, something nobler, something kinder.
We all hope for that secret music to visit us. Yes, absolutely.
And the invisible things. This wonderful surgeon I had, Charles Cole, I showed him the book, and he was so sweet. He was so embarrassed by it. I mean, I could see why somebody might be embarrassed that I wrote about him, but I wrote about him in the most laudatory way and an admiring way, not just because he was such a good surgeon, which he certainly was, but because of something he did. And this would appeal to you, Grace. He goes to places that have no doctors, and he operates there, and gives cataract surgery to people. He said in African villages, the cataracts are so thick they are shields over the eyes. The people are practically officially blind. And in their blindness, before he arrived, they would lead each other by sticks. That is, a sighted person would hold one end of a stick, and the blind person would hold the other end of the stick, and the sighted person would lead the blind person to wherever he wanted to go or she wanted to go. And then when Charles did his cataract surgery, there were these piles of sticks in the clinic. And you see it, a pile of sticks, a pile of sticks. And the sticks were not, not just functioning instruments. They were signs that people could depend on one another, and that they could, in the worst straits, they couldn't see, rely on somebody who could see. And then the doctor came along and allowed lots of people to see. But it was an awfully good idea to keep that pile of sticks.
What a wonderful image. That pile of sticks for sight, unsighted sight. Again, a contrast and opposition.
It's wonderful when people like you and I meet normal people. And so Dr. Cole is a perfectly normal person. So he tells me this story, and I said, wait, no, let us stop. Let's tell me every detail of this story. He was just telling it as a matter of course, because he had a purpose, and he had a mission, and he did it beautifully. But folks like Schulman and Rosenblatt said, give me that metaphor.
Yeah,
give me that. Give me that image.
Damn, that's the image.
You lead your normal life, but he does, give us something that we can make use of.
Yeah. But he does the heroic thing.
He does. He is absolutely a hero. You love family. You're so good with family. You're good with your poems about your mother and the paintings of our lives. I don't know how much time we have, but this is something I've never done before, and probably will have no reason to do it again. But in Cataract Blues, I write a letter to Grace, and just in the middle of it, because the book moves like music, or it's supposed to movement, so that I really do what I want. Dearest Grace, once in a while I'm lucky. I approach the paintings of our lives very carefully, for that is the way to approach a Grace Schulman work of art. You can miss things, important things, if you hurry. But on a studied stroll, you can pick up treasures that are not only gifts in themselves, but have a connection with the way you're thinking at a particular moment, with some piece of wonderment bothering you or blessing you. So lately, I've been thinking about my recent cataract surgery and about the color blue that has come blaring into my life, and about invisibilities and secret sounds, and about my daughter, both invisible and inaudible for 15 years, the presence of her absence. Riffing all over the place the way I do, running the keyboard. And I come to the title poem of your sublime book, and I thrill to the panoply of objects that hold potential secrets and the paintings of our lives, invisible to us. And I go to the piano and try to paint the unifying blues of my desires. Thank you. Love you. R.
So beautiful. Gosh. I'm so proud and honored to be the recipient of that beautiful letter, those beautiful words. Well, my mother was,
You are poetry and you are found poetry. Hi, Alice.
Hey, Roger. Hi, Grace.
hi, Alice.
I bet that hour went fast for you. Quickly, I should say. It's been just an honor to be here and listen to your discussion, to listen to your work. It's been an astonishing hour, and I just can't thank you enough. I hate to say that we're at the end of it, though. So I am going to have to say goodnight.
Our thanks to you, Alice. You make everything work so beautiful.
Oh, it's my genuine pleasure to be here, and everybody else who's here. I'm going to mute you, and I'm going to minimize your spotlight so that you can relax while I say goodnight to everyone. I'd like to thank Roger and Grace for participating in Write America this evening, and to everyone who tuned in tonight. And thank you, Roger, for creating this original and important series to look forward to each week. Tonight's episode is the perfect example of the purpose and mission of Write America. We hope to see you all Monday, November 21st, as we welcome Linda Paston and Miranda Beeson. It's going to be it's 3 in a period of a week is just a real treat. Please remember to check out Bird's Books Write America page, where you can find out information about our upcoming episodes and maybe purchase a book or two. Thank you all for joining us. Good evening.